Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video I wanted to actually talk to you about why problem solving is actually really important for the workplace. And so I am a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and problem solving is central to what I study. So I study learning from failure and understanding how organizations actually learn from failure. And problem solving itself is really central to organizations. And the more that we sort of study it, the more we realize that it is the fundamental thing that organizations do. So what I'm going to do in this video, get into what do I mean by problem solving and why it's actually really important, and then finally get into some recommendations based on research that I've been doing, and I think it's really interesting and it's important for you to do to understand in terms of problem solving. There is a lot of literature in this area. I put one citation at the bottom of the show notes so you can take a look at that. Really good stuff. So anyways, so why is problem solving central to organizations? Well, you can view organizations, one view of organizations or companies, the workplace, whatever you're doing, is a problem-solving machine. What they're doing is they have problems that the client or the customers actually have, and it's your job to actually go out and solve these particular problems, right? So the stakeholders have all these little tiny problems that they're trying to do and they need to get done, and an organization just simply provides the solution or multiple solutions to those particular problems. And normally we can kind of think of the problem-solving process within organizations as kind of, it's a process, right? So what does that mean? It happens over time and that there's many different steps along the way. So this is the normal view in terms of problem-solving that we believe that happens in an organization. It's really fairly complex, but one view is that it's a problem. It's called probabilistic. So instead of problematic search, where organizations, where organizations go and they discover a problem happens, right? So they have some sort of objective of trying to get something done, right? And organizations could be one person, maybe it's two people, maybe it's 10,000 people, and they have something that they want to accomplish. And then along the way, there is a problem. They try an action and they get sort of kind of a negative response. And then what they discover is that this problem, or they experience some sort of failed response, and then they discover that there's problems, or there is causes to the particular problem that is leading to this sort of negative response that they didn't expect, right? So there's could be multiple causes, and normally that there is a lot of different causes behind even one single problem, and it really depends on how you actually look at the particular problem. It's not necessarily clear. It could be, so for example, I study medical device failure. It could be, for example, that the device failed. Maybe the user themselves doesn't know how to actually use the device. Maybe the hospital has improper conditions behind it. Maybe that there wasn't good instructions by the nursing staff. There's all sorts of things that you can sort of look at in terms of understanding what the problem is, and it's very complicated idea behind what a particular problem is. And so by the way, with this sort of understanding of probabilistic search, that actually comes from the behavioral theory of the firm. Jim March and Richard Simon back in the 60s started talking about this, and as well as Herbert Simon, who actually won the Nobel Prize years ago, started talking about this. He's passed away. But so there are two processes with problem solving, and I think this is really clear and this is really nice that that we have this understanding now. The one is that there is the identification of problems and the identifications of the causes of these problems. So what you have to do is realize that there actually is a particular problem that's happening within the workplace. It's not always all that obvious, particularly if you have multiple metrics that you're looking at, multiple objectives that you're trying to do, and one of them is saying, oh, performance is great, but then another one, you're looking at it and says, yeah, not so great. So that might be, for example, you have really good financial performance within your organization, right? Everything is hunky-dory, you're making lots of money, but there are people that are upset, maybe the human resources, they're upset with something that's going on, maybe they're being overworked, for example. and it's not going to be all that clear in what solution you should actually do, right? So you have some sort of problem, and you have to figure out what the causes to that problem. Then the other thing that you have to think about is what are the particular solutions to this problem, and that's not going to be all that easy to do, right? Because it's a complicated issue, right? So if you, for example, you're making lots of money, well, maybe it took a long time to actually get there, and you want to actually recoup some of the costs that it took to get to that particular stage, or maybe you want to I'm not sure. Maybe, for example, if you reduce the amount of work that each individual is putting in, then all of a sudden the contracts dry up really quickly, and then you don't have any work, right? And that kind of stuff happens, right? There's often a very tippy nature with making money, particularly within smaller organizations. It's not always clear cut in terms of actually something coming back to you, right, when you're solving a particular problem. So what is required with problem solving within the workplace? I think a key thing is that you have to invest in these two capabilities, right? So you are investing in the ability to identify problems and solutions, or identify problems and the causes to problems. Hospitals are really aware of this. They are spending lots of money to identify particular problems that happen within organizations, particularly since it was called the Institute of Medicine report. I think it came out in 2005, I want to say. Maybe it was a little bit earlier. I think somewhere around there. And they identified that the leading cause, or one of the leading cause of death and illness within hospitals, actually due to mistakes or problems that people make that they shouldn't be making, right? So it might be that some people are making maybe errors, the physicians and the nurses and stuff are making errors, and then those errors lead to an infection, right? Or maybe they're improperly washing their hands and leads to infection. There's all sorts of different, things that could happen in hospitals. So they've been investing a lot in trying to solve what is going on with these particular problems and rooting those out as much as they possibly can. So once you identify what the particular problems are, once you understand that this is a problem, right, that user or physician error or something like that, right, nursing error, or just being in a hospital, for example, is a messy place and has a high rate of contamination, that you can get infection from that, then that problem exists, and then you could start coming up with solutions to that. So one of them I was actually involved with years ago with the Ontario Ministry of Health. I actually was going through, and we were putting through the hand washing stations, where the alcohol stuff, right, that you put down into your hands and you wash your hands. We were putting that in the hand sanitizer stations. We were investing in that across Ontario, putting them in all the different places where physicians and nurses might sort of congregate. Maybe it's right at an elevator, for example, where they have a lot of people coming and going. They're really dirty and messy, right? So doing that kind of stuff is really important, and it's pretty simple solutions, but it's not clear. It's often not clear what the solutions are until you actually start digging down and trying to come up with these particular problems. And it's hard to sort of convince people what these particular problems are or solutions are as well. It's going to take you a fair bit of work to actually convince people that these are legitimate solutions. So what can you do to improve the problem solving within your particular workplace, right? So what are some recommendations based on what I've suggested? The first one is know that there is both a surface solution, so you might come up with a particular problem. There is a surface solution, and then there's a deeper solution, right? A more fundamental solution that's going to solve more of the particular problem and more problems. So for example, you might just simply tell, in the case of, maybe physicians are inadvertently spreading infection, you just tell them to wash their hands. That is a real surface solution, because people are going to go out and they're still going to behave the way that they're going to do. If there's an emergency coming in, they're going to run really quickly and deal with that particular emergency rather than going through and solving the particular real problem. So maybe the deeper solution is coming up with maybe it's some sort of technology that resolves this problem, and maybe it keeps their hands cleaner. Maybe you put like silver ions within the gloves that people are using, in the rubber gloves that they're using, and that's going to kill the infection a little bit more. Like there's different things like that that you can look at and maybe provide particular solutions to that are deeper, more fundamental, and that they're going to solve a bigger problem than simply telling somebody what this sort of surface solution is. So then there is another thing to really understand with what I'm saying, and I mentioned this already, is that there's often more than one cause to a particular problem. Causes or problems are overly complex, and it doesn't matter how simple the particular problem is, it's very, very complex to solve what these particular problems are, and you're going to have to look to see at how these all these interlinking problems happen, or interlinking causes happen to actually cause a problem. Now we know this, we've known this since about 1984. There was a scholar called, or there is, Perot, and he sort of pointed out that when accidents happen within an organization, a major catastrophe happens in an organization, is when there's many different causes that overlap and they interlink with each other, and then it has to happen that there's these little kind of tiny things that happen, and all of a sudden you have a perfect storm and there's a catastrophe that happens, right? And you have to be well aware of what these particular problems are. The other thing that you should know, and as you can clearly point out, or you can clearly see, that organizations are problem-solving machines. So if they're problem-solving machines, what you should be investing in within your organization is actually investing in problem solving, right? So going through and maybe having somebody that is dedicated to solving particular problems within the organization. Maybe you have somebody that is going out and solving the customer's problems. You ask them, what are your problems? What are you doing? How can we solve this? And just start out really small, start out with little tiny things and ask people just, what do you think of this? Is this a particular problem that you'd like to be solved? And then you get their you get their responses, and then you solve those particular things, right? So having maybe it as a suggestion box, a really small thing, and sometimes that really helps, right? That's all you really need, is to gather these particular problems and then try to solve those particular problems, and you do them slowly and incrementally, and you do that over years, not months. You do that over years, pretty soon you have a really good solution and you have a organization that's functioning very, very well. So that's all I want to talk about today. If you like these videos, give me a thumbs up here as well. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. I do put out every Thursday stuff about innovation that I find interesting, stuff on Saturday about strategy, and throughout the week I talk about things like writing and going to graduate school and all sorts of stuff like that, because I'm trying to get the word out about my reciprocity platform, which is a sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build, that's hopefully going to help out people, in the sense that you can actually go on there and get your own work proofread, or you can pay for credits, but then also I'm hoping that it's going to help out science. So in sort of two respects, that hopefully if it ever becomes profitable, then I'll use some of the profits to give back to graduate students, and as well as for scholarships, and as well as use this as a platform that some people can go and, if researchers were interested in doing one particular understanding people and stuff like that, then maybe use this as a platform where people can get to that, to those particular people. So that's all I'm talking about at this moment. Thank you so much. Take care and have a wonderful day.